Angel of Death, Beverly Alit. Born on October 4, 1968 in England, Beverly Alit grew up in the village of Corby Glen. She had two sisters and a brother. Her father, Richard, worked in unlicensed employment and her mother worked as a cleaner at school. Alit did not pass the entrance exam for Kesteven and Grantham School for Girls, so she went to Charles Red Secondary School. She often volunteered as a babysitter. At 16 she left school and took nursing classes at Grantham College. Alit, later known as the Angel of Death, would become Britain's most dangerous serial killer. Before we dive into Beverly Alit's criminal past, don't forget to subscribe to Crime Engineers, like and share the video with your loved ones. By the way, I create visual content with artificial intelligence on my Instagram account, which I've added in the description, so be sure to check it out. Beverly Alit showed some worrying tendencies during her growing up years. Alit had an obsession with drawing attention to herself. She had a habit of putting bandages and plasters over minor and insignificant injuries on her body. But in reality, most of the time there were no injuries at all. For a series of minor and inconsequential injuries and physical ailments. He spent considerable time in the hospital seeking medical help. She once convinced doctors to perform an appendectomy even though she wasn't sick, only to be forced to visit other hospitals when she was found out. As an overweight teenager, Beverly Alit spent much of her time in hospital and began to self-harm. Alit began studying nursing at Grantham College in Lincolnshire, and although she did not achieve much success at school, with her strange behavior such as smearing feces on the wall, fabricated illnesses and self-harming tendencies, she was able to find a job at Kesteven Hospital in 1991 and started working in the children's clinic. Beverly Alit's alarming tendencies during childhood and adolescence seemed to be typical of Munchausen syndrome. Alit's behavior would force her to harm others in order to satisfy her desire to be noticed, since it did not provoke the desired reaction in others and she failed to draw attention to herself. Not harm to be despised, but harm on the level of death, harm that would make him a child killer. It was the kind of harm that would make her the most imprisoned woman in England and herself the Angel of Death. Beverly Alit's first victim was a 7-month-old baby, Liane Taylor, who was brought to the children's clinic on February 21, 1991 with a chest infection. Alit did her best to reassure baby Taylor's parents and persuaded them to go home and get some rest. When they came back, Alit told them that baby Taylor was in respiratory distress but was recovering. Just before midnight, Liane Taylor suffered another respiratory crisis but recovered satisfactorily. Later, Alit was left alone with baby Taylor and her condition deteriorated dramatically. She turned deathly pale before reddish spots appeared on her face. At this point, Alit called the emergency resuscitation team. Liane Taylor suffered a heart attack and, despite the best efforts of the emergency team, suffered severe brain damage and survived with the help of life support machines. On medical advice, his parents made the painful decision to remove the baby from life support. Alit's nursing colleagues were confused by the absence of alarm monitors that did not sound during baby Taylor's respiratory distress, but nevertheless Liane Taylor's cause of death was recorded as heart failure. Beverly Alit's second victim was 11-year-old Timothy Hardwick, who was hospitalized with an epileptic seizure on March 5, 1991, just 2 weeks after Liane Taylor's death. Beverly Alit again took the opportunity to be alone with the boy. Shortly afterwards, the emergency resuscitation team was called in. When they arrived, including a pediatrician, the bruised boy had no pulse and despite all efforts, they were unable to revive him. A subsequent autopsy failed to reveal a clear cause of death and was officially recorded as epilepsy. The third victim was a 1-year-old baby, Kaylee Desmond, who was brought to the hospital on March 3, 1991 with a chest infection and appeared to be recovering. Kaylee was lying in the bed of Liane Taylor, who had died 2 weeks earlier. 5 days after arriving at the hospital, she suffered a heart attack. The resuscitation team managed to revive her and transferred her to another hospital in Nottingham. Doctors there discovered a strange hole in baby Kaylee's armpit and an air bubble next to it, but no investigation was launched. On March 20, 1991, 5-month-old baby Paul Crampton was admitted to hospital with a non-serious bronchial infection. Just before he was discharged, Beverly Alit, who had been caring for him alone, called for emergency help, observing that Paul was suffering from insulin shock and had slipped into a coma. Although the fluctuations in insulin levels surprised doctors, baby Paul was revived and transferred to another hospital in Nottingham. Baby Paul Crompton was very lucky to have survived the services of the Angel of Death. The frequent occurrence of health incidents and the alarming collapse of infant patients and other pediatric patients who appeared to be recovering well drew attention to the children's clinic. In Beverly Alit's presence, however, no suspicion was aroused and Alit continued her uncontrolled spree of violence. Beverly Alit turned her attention to 2-month-old twins, Katie and Becky Phillips, who were being observed for premature birth. Alit brought Becky, one of the twins, to the children's ward, claiming she was having a gastrointestinal crisis, and took over her care. After spending 2 days with Beverly Alit, baby Becky Phillips was sent home with her mother. At home, Becky suffered convulsions and severe pain throughout the night and was brought back to the hospital, but died that night. Despite an autopsy, pathologists could not find a clear cause of death. Unfortunately, Becky's surviving twin sister, Katie Phillips, was also brought to the hospital where Beverly Alit was found. Some time later, Katie, who was in the pediatric ward with Alit, began to have respiratory distress, prompting Alit to call in the resuscitation team. The baby was resuscitated, but the same thing happened again with Alit present. Fortunately, baby Katie was transferred to hospital in Nottingham. Ironically, Katie's mother, Sue Phillips, was grateful to Alit for saving her baby's life and asked her to be Katie's godmother. Beverly Alit agreed, even though she gave baby Katie partial paralysis, cerebral palsy, vision and hearing damage. After all these incidents, the fact that the incidents were repeated 5 more times and that Alit was present during these attacks raised suspicions in the hospital. 15-month-old Claire Peck was to be Beverly Alit's last victim, ending Alit's violent spree. Claire Peck suffered from asthma and needed a breathing tube. After only a few minutes in Alit's care, baby Claire suffered a heart attack. She was revived by the resuscitation team but was left alone with Alit again and had another heart attack. This time she was not so lucky and died. Although the autopsy showed that the child died of natural causes, the persistence of heart attacks and incidents at the children's clinic over the past 2 months alarmed hospital consultant Dr. Nelson Porter, and an investigation was launched. An airborne virus was initially suspected, but high levels of potassium were found in baby Claire's blood. 18 days later, baby Claire was exhumed under police supervision and traces of lignocaine, a drug that should never be given to a baby during cardiac arrest, were discovered. Police Inspector Stuart Clifton suspected foul play and investigated other cases at the children's clinic over the last 2 months, finding that many had extremely high levels of insulin. Treatment processes and forms were checked, parents of the victims were interviewed and evidence was gathered. As evidence was gathered, facts were coming to light and it was discovered that Beverly Alit had reported that the key to the insulin fridge was missing. It was also discovered that baby Paul Crompton's nurse's records were missing for the period of time he was on the ward. All of these records, the evidence, the 4 deaths, 13 victims, 25 separate incidents in the last 2 months, the only common factor was the presence of Beverly Alit in every suspicious case. By July 26, 1991 there was enough evidence to charge Beverly Alit with murder, but she was not formally charged until November 1991. Alit was calm and controlled in her interrogations. She steadfastly denied all the attacks and emphasized her concern for the victims. Searches of Alit's home revealed missing treatment forms. Investigators conducted a thorough background check on Beverly Alit and found that she had suffered from a severe personality disorder and a pattern in her early adolescence. Beverly Alit exhibited symptoms of both Munchausen syndrome and Munchausen's proxy syndrome. Munchausen syndrome is characterized by a person who uses scenarios of physical and psychological illness to attract attention. Munchausen by proxy syndrome, on the other hand, involves satisfying one's desire to be noticed by harming others in order to gain attention and attention. Beverly Alit's court process lasted 2 months. During the trial, the opinions of psychologists and pediatricians were taken into consideration and it was even added that Beverly Alit would never recover. Nevertheless, on May 23, 1993, Alit was found guilty and sentenced to 13 life sentences for murder, attempted murder, and misconduct in office. It was the largest sentence ever given to a woman, but in the judge's view it was proportionate to the suffering of the victims, their parents, and the humiliation it brought to the nursing profession. Beverly Alit was incarcerated at Rampton Secure Hospital in Nottingham. This was a high-security hospital, mostly for people detained under the Mental Health Act. While there, Alit again attempted to attract attention, swallowing glass and pouring boiling water over his hands. She later admitted to 3 murders and 6 assaults, but in vain. Because Beverly Alit is on the Home Office's list of offenders who will never be granted parole. In addition, the maternity unit at Kesteven Hospital, where Beverly Alit worked, was completely closed. In 2001, Beverly Alit was reported to have married a fellow inmate, and in May 2005 it was revealed in the Mirror that she had received more than $40,000 in state benefits since 1993.